Okay, on the lesson we're going to be working on right now is going to be multiplying polynomials. And you worked with polynomials in the last lesson. So, you know what a polynomial is. Polynomials are monomials, binomials, trinomials, and then anything above that we just call polynomials. So if you look here in the first example, you have a monomial multiplied by a binomial. Or binomial, not binomial, binomial. And this is nothing more than just the distributive property. You're going to take 3x and you're going to multiply it by 4x. And then you're going to take 3x and you're going to multiply it by 5. And then so you go ahead and multiply those. And you might say, you can't multiply those because those are not like terms. You use like terms. Remember this, you use like terms when you add and subtract. You can multiply those. So on the first one here on the left side, so we're going to take 3 times 4, which is 12. And then we're going to take x times x. X times x. X times x is written as x squared. So we have 12x squared, and we're going to take 3 times 5, and that makes it positive 15. And x doesn't get multiplied by anything, so it's just x. And so here's your, there's the product, 12x squared plus 15x. See if you can go ahead and do this one on your own. Just go ahead and distribute that 6a to everything inside. Pause the video and check it. Make sure you're getting it correct. You're going to take 6a and you're going to multiply it by 10. And then you're going to take, it's a positive 6a, and you're going to multiply it by a negative 3a. Don't forget the negative sign goes with 3a. So let's go ahead and multiply those. We know 6 times 10 is 60. And then a doesn't get multiplied by anything, it's just a. Well, now on the right, we have 6 times negative 3, which is negative 18. And a times a is a squared. And so that's what we're left with. 60a minus 18a squared. I have 2 examples on this page because they look similar, but they're a little bit different. At the top, you have 2x plus 3 in parentheses, and at the bottom, you have 2x plus 3 that is not in parentheses. So I just want to show you the difference between the 2 problems. At the bottom, remember, you have to follow your order of operations. So this multiplication sign comes before you take 2x and 3 and you add them together. So really what you're looking at here is solving this part of the problem first, and then you're going to add 2x to it when you're done distributing. So let's go ahead and bring our 2x down. So we know 3 times 6x is going to be 18x. And positive 3 times negative 5 is a negative 15. And now we combine our like terms. This is where they have to have the same variables with the same exponents. 2x and 18x combine to make 20x, and then you have negative 15. X minus 15 is the product for the second one. And I guess it said find the product. It probably more so should have said simplify. Should have said simplify because there was an addition of 2x in there, and that wasn't the product. But nonetheless, you still work it out the way I showed you. Now up here at the top, it says find the product. Well, the product means we take everything in the left parentheses and multiply it by everything in the right parentheses. So this is just like the distributive property. You are going to take 2x, multiply it by 6x, and you're going to take 2x and multiply it by -5. Now remember, it's a positive 2x, and it's a -5. So that's why we put plus 2x, because it's positive. So we've taken and multiplied 2x by everything in the second parentheses. Everything in the second parentheses. Let me go ahead and get those lines back for you. Now we're going to take a positive 3 times 6x, and we're going to take that positive 3 and multiply it by -5. And so this is what we have. And now you could just go ahead and multiply and combine like terms. Let's work over there on the left side. 2 times 6 is 12, and x times x is x squared. Positive 2 times -5 is a -10, and then bring down the x. Positive 3 and positive 6 make a positive 18, and then x comes down with it. And then positive 3 times -5 is a -15. Look at what we've done. The only like terms are -10x and 18x. The 12x squared, x is squared, and in these cases, x is just x. It is not squared, so you cannot combine 12x squared with anything. So let's look. We have -10x plus 18x. -10 plus 18 will give us a positive 8x. And then -15 comes with it. And we have combined all like terms. So therefore, if you look at these two, they have very different answers. So you need to pay attention to your order of operations and work them out the way you're supposed to work them out. Follow your steps. This example says find the product. Go ahead and multiply these out. Well, let's look here. To find the product, we're going to take 7s and multiply it by everything inside. Everything inside the second parentheses. It's a positive 7s, and we're multiplying it by 9. Take this -1, multiply it by 8s, and take the -1 and multiply it by 9. Most of you probably have used this before. This is called FOIL. This is what a lot of people call it, as FOIL. I'm probably not going to use that term as much, because once we start getting past multiplying a binomial times a binomial, you really can't use FOIL. FOIL, you can only use it here for a binomial times a binomial. You should be thinking that you multiply everything in the first parentheses by everything in the second parentheses, and you'll notice once we get to like a trinomial times a trinomial, FOIL is not going to work there for you. But if you think multiply everything in the first parentheses by everything in the second parentheses, that will work for you. Let's go ahead and multiply here. 7 times 8. 7 times 8 is going to be 56. S times S is S squared. 7 times 9, well, that's a positive 63. We bring down the S. Don't forget your S with it. If you have -1 times 8s, we know that's going to be -8s. And we have -1 times +9, that's a -9. Please make sure that your S's do not look like 5s. They should look different. Combining your like terms are the S's. So we're going to have 56S squared, and 63 minus 8 is going to be, it's a positive, 55S, and you bring down your minus 9. And there you go. You have the product of those two binomials. This one says find the product. You have 3x plus 2. Actually, you have the quantity of 3x and 2 squared. So we know what it means to square something. It means you just take whatever's being squared, multiply it by itself. So what is being squared? 3x plus 2 is being squared. So you take 3x plus 2 and you multiply it by itself. I want you to go ahead and pause the video and try this one on your own and see what you can come up with. I'll go ahead and work it out and you can check it. 3x times 3x and a positive 3x times a positive 2. Now we're going to say a positive 2 times 3x and positive 2 times positive 2. Once you start getting the hang of these, you probably don't need to be writing this step down. Just to make it a little bit quicker, you could probably be doing most of this in your head. I am writing this down to show you where everything is coming from. So let's look. Let's go ahead and multiply some things. 3 times 3 is going to be 9, and x times x is x squared. Positive 3 times positive 2 is a positive 6, and bring down your x. Positive 2 times positive 3 is a positive 6, and bring down your x. And here, positive 2 times positive 2 is a positive 4. Combine like terms, that would be 6x plus 6x. Make sure you are not putting 9x with it, because it's not 9x, it is 9x squared. And there's your final product. A lot of times with this one here, you will want to put the squared symbol with it, because the 2's outside, and you think, hey, what we need to do is we need to put the squared symbol with it. You might even put it with 3, but remember, that's not what you're supposed to do, because it has a plus sign here. That plus sign does not allow you to put this power of 2 inside the parentheses with everything. Now, if it happened to be 3x times 2 raised to the second power, then you could, because every operation is multiply. That's when you could do that, but not in the problem that we're given at this this example. So make sure you pay attention to that. Make sure you remember that. So there's your solution, and let's move on. You have this one here. This one here is not any different than what we've been doing. This still says find the product, and you still multiply everything in the first parentheses by everything in the second parentheses. So we say x times 2x. Positive x multiplied by 3x, and positive x multiplied by negative 2. So we've multiplied x by everything in the second parentheses. Now let's go ahead and multiply this positive 2 by everything in the second parentheses. So we have positive 2, and we'll multiply it by 2x squared. Positive 2 multiplied by 3x. And positive 2 multiplied by negative 2. Okay. So now we've multiplied everything in the first parentheses by everything in the second parentheses. And now let's go ahead and simplify this. Well, we know the invisible 1's there, so 1 times 2 is going to give us 2, and x times x is x squared. And I've messed up right here. I messed up because, first off, let me go back. X was supposed to be multiplied by 2x squared, and I forgot to put the squared with it. So let me go ahead and fix that, and while you're getting that ready on your paper. So we said x was supposed to be multiplied by 2x squared. And I did get that right over here. I did multiply it by 2x squared. Okay. Sorry about that. That's what happens every now and then. Everybody's human and everybody makes mistakes, and I just overlooked that one. And hopefully that's the part that you are trying to not do, is not make those minor mistakes. And even if you do, trying to catch those. So now let's go ahead and do this again. We have the invisible 1. So 1 times 2 is 2. X times x squared. Well, if you have x times x squared, this is the reason why we look. If they have the same base, add the exponents. 1 plus 2 is 3. 1 times 3 is going to be 3, and they're both positive, so it's a positive 3. X times x is x squared. We have a positive 1 times a negative 2. We know that's negative 2, and x is the only x there, so we leave that as x. Moving on down, we have positive 2 times positive 2. That's a positive 4, and we bring the x squared. We drop it down. Positive 2 times positive 3 is a positive 6, and we drop the x down. And positive 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. And so this is what we have. Now let's combine some like terms. There are no other x cubes, so we will say 2x cubed. If we look, let's see, we're done there. So we look 3x squared and 4x squared. So 3x squared plus 4x squared is a positive 7x squared. So now we are done with those. We have a negative 2x and we have a positive 6x. So negative 2x plus 6x. Negative 2 plus 6 is a positive 4, and x is their term, their like term. So let's go ahead and underline those, saying that we're done with those. And the only thing we're left with is a negative 4. We will bring it out here at the end. And so we look, we were combining x squareds with x squareds because they have the same variables with the same exponents. And x's with x's for the same reason. And if we look at our final answer, it is this. 2x cubed plus 7x squared plus 4x minus 4. That's the product of this problem that we started with. I would like you to try this one on your own. You pause the video and I will quickly work through it. All right, first off, we have h times h squared. Remember to put the squared so we don't mess up like we did in the last problem. H times negative 4h. Well, that's going to be a negative. I'm sorry. H is positive, so let's make a positive h, and we're going to multiply that by negative 4h. We'll deal with the negative sign here in a little bit. And h times 8, so positive h times positive 8. Let's go with negative 5 times h squared. Negative 5 times negative 4h. And negative 5 times positive 8. Here we go. We've distributed everything in the first parentheses to everything in the second parentheses, and now we just use our multiplication skills and combining like term skills. H times h squared. We know they have the same base, so we add the exponents. H times negative 4h is going to be negative 4h squared, and h times 8, positive 8h. Negative 5 times h squared is negative 5h squared. And negative 5 times negative 4h. Well, negative 5 times negative 4 is a positive 20. And then we have the h. And negative 5 times positive 8 is negative 40. So let's combine like terms here. There are no h cubes other than that one. So h cubed. We have a 4h squared, and that's not 4h squared, that's negative 4h squared. We need to pay attention to those signs. So we have negative 4h squared, and negative 5h squared is negative 9h squared. We have 8h and 20h to make a positive 28h. And negative 40. Looks like we have all like terms combined. Let's just take one quick glance to make sure that we have the correct answer. And that is the simplified product of what we started out with. And let's look at this last one. This last one is not any different. It's just a trinomial times a trinomial, and it's really not any different than what we've been doing. As long as you multiply everything in the first parentheses by everything in the second parentheses, we're going to get the correct product there. So x squared times 2x squared. Positive x squared times negative 3x. Now we're down an h. Just think about the last problem we just got done doing. And we have a positive x squared times a positive 6. Okay, now moving on to the second term there in that trinomial, x. So we have positive x, and we're multiplying it by 2x squared. Positive x times negative 3x. And positive x times 6. You probably don't want to get in too big of a hurry when you do these, and I was just stopping to check to make sure that I had everything multiplied that we needed to. And because when you start working with larger problems like this, you start having some issues. If you get in a hurry, you start forgetting things. So we have negative 5 times 2x squared. Negative 5 times negative 3x. Give me 1 second here. I guess that's not going to work. And the last one, negative 5 times positive 6. And I'm going to write that right here, because I'm running out of room and I want to try and make sure I keep that on the screen for you guys to see. Okay, so this is where we're at. Let's go ahead and do our multiplication here. X squared times 2x squared. Well, we know 1x squared times 2x squared. 1 times 2 is 2. And x squared times x squared. Like bases, since they have the same base, we add the exponents. In case you don't remember, x squared times x squared. Since this is multiplication here, and the bases are the same, then you add those two numbers. The next one, we're going to have a positive times a negative, so we know that's a negative. 1 times 3 is 3, and x squared times x is x cubed. Moving on, a positive times a positive is a positive, and x squared times 6, 6x squared. And now we're here. Since we have 1x times 2x squared, 1 times 2 is positive 2, and x times x squared is going to be x cubed. If we have x times negative 3x, that's going to be a positive times a negative is a negative, and 1x times 3x is going to be 3x squared. And moving on to the last one, x times 6 is a positive 6x. We have a few more things to get to out here. So we have negative 5 times 2x squared. Negative 5 times 2 is a negative 10, and x squared. Negative 5 times negative 3x. Negative times a negative is a positive 15x. And the last one, negative 5 times positive 6, negative 30. We got all that to fit on the page. That's good. All right, so let's move along here and combine like terms. Combining like terms, so we look 2x to the 4th. That is the only x raised to the 4th power. So we're good to go. Now we have negative 3x cubed, a positive 2x cubed, and that looks like all the x cubes that we have. So negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1 x cubed. I'm not putting the 1 there because we don't need it in front of the variable. Just go ahead and put a second line underneath there to know that's we've worked with those. We have a positive 6x squared, a negative 3x squared, and a negative 10x squared. So 6x squared minus 3x squared. I'm just going to make some quick notes here. Six minus 3 is 3, and then minus 10 is going to be negative 7. So we have negative 7x squared. the second underline there to say that we've used those. Now we have 6x and 15x. They add together to make 21x. And negative 30 out here on the end. So you've taken that trinomial that we've started with and you multiplied it by the second trinomial to get this simplified version. Well, that's all we have for this video. We will see you on the next one.